What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here, and today's episode of The Truth in This Art is sponsored by a new online art platform called Fire and Bliss Creative. Fire and Bliss is the first art platform that I've seen that focuses on the art of the LGBTQ plus BIPOC and allied artists exclusively. And I have to say, the pieces are amazing. Whether you're looking specifically to add diverse art to your collection, or you have a space that needs a bit of updating, every single print on fireandbliss.com has been created by a diverse, independent artist who maintains full control over their art and their profit. I work with Fire and Bliss to curate a collection of my favorite pieces, like Somewhere Blue by Wodrich Francois. Shop my favorites at fireandbliss.com/truth and get 20% off your first purchase at Fire and Bliss. Again, that's fireandbliss.com/truth and use the code TRUTH for 20% off your first purchase. Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today I am chatting with one of the co-founders of Mobtown Fermentation LLC, makers of Wild Bay Kombucha and Icaro Yerba Mate. Please welcome Sid Sharma. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this is going to be great because, you know, as I was telling you in the pre-show meeting, talk, that I have made your product part of my like daily ritual. I'll have my partner, my girlfriend will look at me. She's like, "Why are you drinking kombucha all the time?" I was like, "Look, it's delicious, and you need to get familiar." So I want to go into, for those who are undipped and uninitiated, give us the vital stats. Like, what's the story? How did you get started, and how did Wild Bay or Mobtown Fermentations come to be?
So it really all started with a family recipe. Adam and Sergio are stepbrothers, and their parents would make kombucha and other fermented foods all of the time in their house growing up. We've all known each other since me and Sergio were 14 and Adam was 16 years old. So I'd be in their house in Park Heights, and that was back in 2004. And Sergio's mom was making kombucha. So that's really when I learned what it was. At that point, there was no kombucha in stores, and so there was really no familiarity with it. And his mom explained to me what it was. And, you know, I feel like every culture has some sort of fermented food similar to kombucha or something pickled that gives you an idea of the process.
Sure.
So for me, in Indian culture, achar is basically pickled vegetables that people will eat with a meal. So that's really what I equated it to at that point in my life. But Sergio's mom and Adam's dad, who got married, they moved out of the country and left all of the equipment and recipe with Adam because he was a couple years older than us. He actually had a place. He was in college. And he pulled out that equipment and really fell in love with the process, made the recipe his own. And I ended up moving back to Maryland after grad school. And Sergio and Adam were discussing starting a kombucha company. And honestly, all I thought was that it would be a fun excuse to hang out with some friends for a few hours every week. So Sergio reached out and asked if I wanted to be a part of it. And he believed I'd bring something useful to the table. And we rented a 300 square foot space of a local juice shop so we could piggyback off of their commercial license. And I mean, Wild Bay Kombucha was born. We started knocking on doors, whoever was willing to carry us.
That's great. It's great to, and I have a question about that a little bit later, but it's great to hear how like that story came together with one of the components being like hanging out with friends. I mean, that's a thing. It's a thing when you're able to work with your friends and grow something with your friends.
Oh, 100%. And early on, it was even more deep-rooted in friendships than that. You know, if you're familiar with Hamden, a lot of our friends would be hanging out at the bars on the avenue, and we'd go over there and recruit a few to help us bottle, and then we'd go back there with them after we were done.
So I've had kombucha from a few different, and I've recently gotten to Icaro Yerba Mate as well. So what makes your product like different, like from other products that might be on the market? What are like the maybe signature? Obviously, no trade secrets here, right? But what makes it like really stick out? Like the branding, it's really cool. I like under the bottle cap; it gives me those Snapple vibes. And even on the cap, I was like, "Is this a Jaguar? Is this like the no? It's a bunny. It's like, is this like the logo? What are we doing here?" So tell me about what makes it really stick out and what makes it such a unique product.
So the product in the bottle is all about taste, right? We pride ourselves on making a perfectly balanced kombucha because, as you alluded to, kombucha has, that fermented flavor, that natural vinegar tone. And through fermentation techniques, we're really able to balance that. So through those fermentation techniques and using unique flavor combinations, we're really able to make it our own. Also, if you really get in the nitty gritty of kombucha, we're one of the only people brewing exclusively with fair trade organic gunpowder green tea versus most people in the market are using black tea, which results in a little bit more intense of a vinegar flavor.
I mean, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then when it comes down to the branding, you talked about the rabbit. I actually have a pretty funny story around the rabbit.
Sure.
So when we were first starting, you have some bottles, and we had a name we wanted to go with, and the next step is to design a logo. So we didn't really know any graphic designers, but Adam was a touring musician prior to starting this. So he had some contacts with graphic designers in Germany where he was signed to a label. So we reached out to this German graphic designer, this guy Kierik, and we asked him to help us design our logo.
Sure.
And I think somewhere in translation, logo became mascot. And he sent us back 15 or 16 mascots. Most of them were cartoon, scantily clad women. A few were just random, very psychedelic like things. And one of them was this rabbit. And we really fell in love with it just because, it is wild.
Yeah.
Rabbit is the universal sign for veganism. And it was just really fun. So we hung on to it. And as soon as we could print our own caps, we knew that's where we wanted to insert it.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Nothing says sexy and scantily clad women on your kombucha bottle. So I'm glad you went with the rabbit.
Yeah, that would have been very tasteful.
It's like, oh, is this a beer? Like, no.
No.
So obviously being a brand that's connected to Baltimore, is inextricably connected to Baltimore. I mean, Bay is in there, makes me think of Chesapeake Bay. And even with some of the colors, I start thinking of like maybe the Ravens a little bit with some of the colors I've seen on the bottles and things of that nature. Describe the importance of Wild Bay and more largely Mobtown fermentation being in Baltimore.
Well, we all grew up here. This was really the origin story of kombucha for all of us, was in Park Heights. So even beyond just Baltimore, we wanted to make sure when we came back, we were in West Baltimore. And so we landed here in Northwest Baltimore. It's all about making a difference in our hometown. Baltimore's not known in other parts of the country as a creative hub or as a food hub or incubator, but it really should be. There are some incredible brands and there's incredible support for local and people just creating in Baltimore.
Sure.
So we really wanted to use our brand or our company as a vehicle to show people what's going on here.
That's great. That's really in the ethos of what I'm doing here with this project. Is like showing that like sometimes you need to be hit over the head and know that no, we got a lot of this cool stuff here. Not only do we have kombucha, but we got all types of visual artists. So it's like I need to get familiar and know about that, and it's deeper than some of the stories that people usually hear. It's a lot more things here.
And on that note, in visual art in Baltimore, I definitely want to at least mention kind of how our label design came to be.
Sure.
So we originally started in Hamden, and we outgrew that side of the juice shop after 1 year. So 6 months into starting the company, Whole Foods asked to carry our kombucha locally. And that's when the three of us dove in full time. So then from August 2015 to March 2016, we were in that side of the juice shop, and then eventually took over the whole space.
Wow.
And then we outgrew that and moved up to Timonium because there was no spot in the city that was around, 3,000 to 4,000 square feet that was zoned for what we had to do.
Right.
So it ended up taking us out of the city. And we found out that we had to build out certain rooms of this facility to get it, certified by the state for what we wanted to do. And we didn't have the capital, so we entered the Shore Hatchery pitch competition on the Eastern Shore, having to take first place. And we did. So we won around $30,000 from that to pay for the build out of our facility. Yeah, it was crazy. And then when we look back on it, there's so many things that happen along the way that are, luck, like for lack of a better word, luck, or just being in the right place at the right time. That has led us here, which is why, in general, it's important for us to tie it all back into Baltimore. But that all started with me kind of mentioning the labels. So a local artist, Sarah Tomko, designed our labels. She walked into our brewery one day in Timonium and told us she loves our product, but does not like our labels. And we had no idea who she was. We didn't know anything about her. And we were like, sure, we'll give you some kombucha in exchange for a design.
Yeah.
And then when she brought it back, we were like, all right, this is beautiful. We're going to use it. How much would you have charged us?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I think working with local artists that just really bakes it into what you're doing. You can outsource, you can go through wherever and have someone do something, put something together really nice. You could probably see in my background, my logo, and it sticks out. And I specifically wanted to have a local artist do it. Yeah, I could have won anywhere, had anyone do it. You talk to a lot of different people, and I've had some marketing strategy calls. And it's like, why don't you change the logo? I was like, nope, it's a Baltimore guy, and I like the logo, and I'm sticking with it. And that's just another element, much like having the logo for the bottle and the branding for the bottle done from someone local. It makes sense.
Yeah, and if we can be a platform to help that artist by people seeing our bottles, great. I mean, we tell anyone who works with us, leverage it. I was talking to my friend who's our photographer, Pete Hoblitzel, and feel free to share anything you've done for us as a part of your portfolio. Yeah,
I mean, and that's the thing that gets you seen. I go there, I see the bottle, literally. I feel like I've gone to spots in Hamden. In the day job, I go there. This is a ridiculous combination. I don't want to hear any judgment here, but I'll go there. I'll get my morning chai latte, and I was like, "Yo, can you put some cardamom in it?" And that's the lane I'm on right now. And they're like, "Oh, it's the chai latte guy," and I was like, "I'm gonna get one of those Wild Bay joints as well." And they're like, "So this is your combination in the morning, coffee and kombucha." It's like, all right, you're gonna have an interesting day, sir. It's like
if I saw someone order that, I would never assume they were drinking it back to back. I would always assume you're going home, putting it in the fridge, and maybe drinking the kombucha later. But I love that you're going back to back.
I'm going back to back with it. It's just and one of the things I realized. Outside of the flavor is very good. And I like that you touched on that, and I kind of understand it now because it's something that when I like something, I want to learn as much about it as I can so I can kind of really understand why I like it. And initially I came in, I was like, oh, this is this effervescent thing. It has this fizz to it. I like that. And I was like, oh, no, this tastes amazing. And there's certain things that just, dietarily I can't do. I can't do cherries, but generally I've had 4 or 5 different flavors that I'm like, okay, these are my go-tos right here. So with that, tell me about the flavors. I currently see 8 flavors, and as I've touched on, my favorite is probably elderberry. In the market, what flavors do you what flavors do you like to really put out there, which you want to maybe come up with in the future? And what flavors really didn't work out? Like, yeah, that's more of a test kitchen kind of thing. It didn't really go anywhere. And lastly, because of how I pair my drinks, has there been any like intentional like food pairings and thinking of like, okay, this like ginger one is going to go really well with a sandwich or what have you?
So I'll start at the top.
Sure.
We currently have 9 flavors and a rotating seasonal.
Okay.
You hit the nail on the head. Our elderberry is our toppling flavor. So you are certainly not alone in that being your go-to. My favorite currently, which I'm actually drinking while we're talking, is our strawberry lavender. We push the kombucha through whole lavender flowers and petals to get that flavor.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful one. If you ever get a chance, I highly recommend it. We're constantly experimenting with flavor combinations. So there's a lot that never get to market because they just don't pass that initial test.
Yeah.
But I have certainly had the joy of trying our best and our worst. So a couple standouts to me in terms of flavors we tried or off-the-wall combinations. One is definitely a spicy tomato kombucha that we did, kind of like a Bloody Mary take. Yeah. You know, it did not taste bad. It really did not taste bad. We just quickly realized it was a little bit too out there to hit the shelves. Like, would anyone other than us grab that because we knew what it tasted like? And then the crash and burn one for us was definitely, we did a ginger cayenne with a little bit of lemon in it, but we used the wrong type of cayenne.
Oh, no.
So when you use the wrong type of cayenne, it can clump together and, you know, you get these sips.
Yeah.
And it just sends you into just a coughing frenzy.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one that went wrong for us. But the combination, when said out loud, obviously doesn't sound too bad.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. And for us, it's really just like a bracket-like approach, right? We'll have, 7 or 8 flavors we're experimenting with at any time. And of those, one of them will get to the market. Maybe one other one will be released at a later time, but even that has been few and far between.
That's really cool. I would love to sit in on one of those meetings. Like, hey man, here's an idea I have. So in terms of that, maybe that pairing with food, is that a thing that's even considered because it like, I've learned recently, and having a conversation with another kombucha maker, that it's a pairing, and it's not necessarily viewed as, hey, this is a health drink. Like, sure, it has that benefit of having more like fermented foods in your diets, but I focus on the taste of it. So in that, is there like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this like blueberry one with nachos. What is there a conversation around like would this pair well with food?
While designing the flavors, there's not really, because we want to design our flavors to be able to stand alone.
Sure.
But we have all definitely noticed certain pairings that just go really well together, right? Our mango peach kombucha with tacos is incredible. Our elderberry kombucha with, it's a great replacement for wine if you're anything you'd pair a red wine with.
Yeah.
So we definitely realized that along the way. One that I definitely do with frequency is our ginger agave kombucha with the spicy neighborhood bird bowl from Ekiben.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, again, this is one of the reasons I do this podcast is one, to learn about people, learn about small business owners, learn about artists, but also to steal from them. So now I have these combinations. I'm like, yeah, man, you ever try doing this wild bay with that, try it with the little Ekiben, it'd be great.
It is. I highly recommend it.
So tell me about, a little bit more about going into business, like with friends. I know it can be a tricky proposition sometimes where it's just like you run into those instances where it's like, this is our friendship and our friendship is based in this, but also this is business and this may be a more business oriented conversation, and it can lead to just kind of tricky things. So what would you say that number one piece of advice you could share with someone who is partnering with friends? I mean, I've gone through it where we're just in different stages on how we view maybe the business or view that partnership, and you don't want it to impact the friendship because that's, pre-existing.
It's actually even deeper than that, I think, with our company, right? Because it's a combination of, I'm friends with them and they're stepbrothers.
Yeah.
So it's a whole nother layer of trickiness in a way. I mean, I remember when we were first talking about starting, and Sergio was all in on me being a part of it, but Adam was unsure, right? He's a couple years older than us. Me and him were friends, but we had never worked together in that type of capacity. He didn't really know what my work ethic's like, what I bring to the table. So I really had to prove myself beyond being a friend. And I think that was a great experience. Like, obviously we ended up all becoming equal partners and it all worked out. The best advice I think I can give someone who's starting a business with friends or even family is really leave the ego and friendship at the door. You have to be able to separate your decision making in the business from emotions and maintain a level of professionalism in front of your team, right? As our team has grown, imagine if we were arguing like friends do, or conversing in that way. It would just reflect poorly on the company, on the brand. And I think we've become pretty incredible at separating those. I mean, you read a lot of business stories about friends who go into business and it sours their relationship. And for us, I think it's been the opposite. We're all so close. It's funny because on weekends we hang out. We spend so much time together, like we even vacation together sometimes. So it's brought us that much closer. And I think it also has matured us. Like, all of us have realized that everyone's making decisions with the most positive intentions in mind. All three of us want this to grow. All three of us want to accomplish great things. You might just have a different perspective on how we get there.
I dig that. Thank you. And something, again, I'm going to apply because, it's just one of those things where you work with people who finding your tribe of people that have that like mind and that similar goal. Sometimes you have that overlap. So I think that's definitely one to grow on and one to really connect with. And friendship at the door, ego at the door. And as a person who has done that thing for a very long time and partnering with a friend, and, you just having that static, and it's like, okay, these are friendship arguments we're having, not necessarily work arguments. So which one is it, man?
Yeah.
So this one is a little similar, but I think it's more about like you as an entrepreneur, right? So you kind of touched on, like, just early on, just one of your partners not being really sure of like what your work ethic is and what your background was. So what are three traits that you've learned to be a successful entrepreneur? And in that, what was the hardest one to master?
I think there's three. I actually think about this a lot. So I'm glad you asked this. I love to study entrepreneurs and how they got there. And I read any book I can get my hands on about a business story, especially for the ones I admire. So I think about this a lot. And the three things I would say, they all start with P. The first one is patience.
Yeah.
Everyone feels like businesses were overnight successes, especially due to social media, but that's not true at all. I think two prime examples that a lot of people will be familiar with are Oatly and Apple, right? It feels like Oatly's oat milk just burst onto the scene and they're growing gangbusters. They just went public. They started in 1994.
Right.
Yeah, but they didn't explode till recently, so they really positioned themselves over decades. And Apple's another great example. Everyone sees them as this ubiquitous brand. There's iPhones in everyone's hands, but Apple was started in 1976. There wasn't even a Macintosh computer you could buy until 84.
Right.
And then he didn't really see any success until the 90s.
Yeah.
So patience is absolutely huge. The next thing I would say is processing. There's a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners with the best intentions and amazing passion. But what I see people lacking a lot is processing, the ability to process and act on feedback, the ability to process data to understand your business, and the ability to not just take rejection, but process it and improve your business. And the last one I would say is perfection. Just always striving to improve, be better, even if it isn't requested or necessary. Just constantly improving your product, marketing, sourcing, and understanding your business. Just always be learning and honing in your craft.
That's great. Of those P's, which one was the one that was really challenging for you to master or to really wrap your mind around?
Patience. Patience is the hardest one. When we started the business, I was 24 years old. Mm-hmm. When you're 24 years old, you're not patient. You're sprinting. You think it's a sprint, and business is a marathon. You have to pace yourself. You have to consciously decide when to go for certain opportunities, especially as a small business with a limited budget. There's more into that decision making. I think early on, I wasn't as patient as I am now. I was much more reactive instead of processing things over time. I think I've really honed in on these three things over time. I think, you learn from your mistakes.
Totally. I've tried to, I kind of do a similar thing. Like, I don't dive into the entrepreneurial stuff as much because ultimately that's what I went to school for. And it's like, okay. But I look at just more of the things that kind of point in the direction of what serves what I'm doing. So I'm doing these interviews. So it's like, all right, how to better relate to people, how to better get a response to someone, how to really show your true self in a conversation versus the representative, and really get out these authentic conversations. Cause someone else could ask you these same questions. You may have a very different response. And I think that that's the thing that I've tried to kind of hone in on. And really the thing that the lesson I took out of it is, what are you searching for? What are you trying to get to? And it's the truth. It's trying to uncover what's the real story behind it, not necessarily what's in the press release, and get those other factoids that might not come up in a press release or in a different interview. So that's really what drives me, trying to help uncover some of these stories.
And I think that is so important, because I think when you read a press release or you read an article or you watch some interviews, you lose a lot of the rawness that exists in business. The raw emotion, the raw effort that someone had to put in to get to where they are. And when you look back and someone asks you to reflect on success, you don't reflect on failure.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't tell the stories of all the failure they had along the way. I mean, we've had multiple moments where us three are sitting in a room and it's just silent because you're thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Right. And I like that comparison of just what was the lead up to being seen, being like Apple, like Oatly. And I think you're right with social media and how we position ourselves at times. No one knows, oh, you've been doing this for how long? What goes into this? Oh, I just see the end result. So, for instance, in doing an interview, someone wouldn't know, let's say if it's a 30-minute interview, it might take me 4 hours of research and post-production stuff to get that out. So, of course, I want to take what I do seriously. And I would imagine the same thing applies for anybody in their business. It's like, yeah, we have this automated, but you know how many meetings we have to have for this, to get this sorted, to get this this image approved, or to get this flavor approved? It's work, and it's fun, but it's work.
Yeah, I think social media has a really negative effect on that to a degree, right? Because I see a lot of young entrepreneurs who are coming up and they think being an entrepreneur is posting on social media or acting like you've already made it. And that's not what it is. It's building a viable business that improves people's lives in some way, so it's sustainable.
Yeah. So I got one more real question, and I didn't tell you about these, but I got 5 rapid fire questions. So look, whatever goodwill I've established with you, Sid, this is all going to go away. So I'm just letting you know. So I guess this is the last thing I would have you, and I think I got a sense of it, but maybe just to hammer it home one more time, how do you continue to grow and develop your business?
I think it's all about just adding value to people's lives. We're focused on producing beverages that are the highest quality, and our customers have been able to taste the difference. And I think you're one of them, right? You were consuming our products before this conversation.
Yes.
And I think we offer high quality products at competitive prices. So you're getting premium kombucha that's organic, non-GMO, kosher, and gives back to your local environment for the same price as a kombucha from a company you may have no connection to. I think building companies from the ground up, it's all about finding basically the people who will care the most. Yep. Like who is your audience? Who wants to consume this product and who cares? And how do you engage them in an authentic way that means something to you and them?
That's legit.
And that's really what's let us grow and develop our business. I think, people resonate with the product. It's never been about me, Sergio, or Adam. I mean, us three, we very much see ourselves as a vehicle for getting the star of the show out there, which is the product in the can and the product in the bottle.
Totally. Absolutely. So yeah, that's great. And that's the lesson they try to teach you with social media, but you guys are doing the real version of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's time for rapid fire questions. I got 5 of them for you, and then we'll wrap up there. And the nature of these rapid fire ones, there were 3. I've added 2 since you were talking because I thought they were funny. So in it, just, try to answer this as quickly as you can, like what pops in your head. So first one is, what is the strangest thing you've ever done as an entrepreneur?
Strangest thing? That is an awesome question. Strangest thing I've done as an entrepreneur.
I dressed as a bottle once.
Oh man, there's definitely been some weird moments. I'm trying to think what would be the weirdest. I would say we've done. One day we were just all pretty frustrated. So we just walked into the warehouse and started building a fort out of our boxes. We've done that. That was a pretty strange, odd thing to do as a break. Mm-hmm. That's one for sure. I would say the other thing is we found a gong to rent. That's and anytime we get a new client, we would hit the gong. But I think the oddest thing was scouring Craigslist for a gong. That has to be up there.
No, that's definitely up here. It's gong o'clock, and we got a new person. Besides money, what is your favorite way to compensate people?
I think words. I think people. I memean, it's the Maya Angelou quote, right? People will never forget the way you make them feel. And I think that is the most influential impact you can have on someone, especially as we grow. We've seen as we grow, I might not work with everyone on our team every day. Mm-hmm. But when I have that type of exchange, I am still seeing the incredible effort you're putting in. Yeah. They really appreciate it.
Yeah, as a person that's on LinkedIn, I'm sure you've seen me on there, and I've gotten a few recommendations this week for just the work that I do in this podcast space, and I mean, it felt really good to reread. I was like, I'm gonna have to cut and paste this. I'm gonna get this printed out. This has got to go somewhere. And it's just words, and just seeing, like, you know, people can tell you they appreciate you, they like what you do, but when you get something that feels like, oh no, this is actually not a canned response. This, you know, you don't tell us to all the girls. You know, this is for me, and it has some meaning to it. So yeah, it's one of those love languages too, right? Mm-hmm. What popular entrepreneurial advice you just simply disagree with? You're like, I don't think that's real.
What popular entrepreneurial advice? Oh man.
The first million is the easiest. And like, shut up.
I know, that's a really tough one. I would say, I'm trying to think. First of all, I'm starting with just what is the common entrepreneurial advice? Right. I think, oh, I got it. Work smart, not hard.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That has got to be the one.
Yeah, it's a crock.
It's just not true. You got to do both. You know, there is no version of working smart and not hard when it comes to it's the end of the night and I've got to mop the horse because I'm the one who's bottling, or I'm the one who's doing that task. You have to be willing to get in the weeds and do the dirty stuff. I mean, we have done every single role in this building. So we know how to do every single role in this building. But a lot of people want to go from step 1 to step 10 instead of understanding that you just have to grind. Like our first 2 years, there was no skill set. I mean, other than knowing how to brew and bottle the product. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh man, like look at how strategic they're being. We were broke and we were dropping off kombucha in our cars, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of these things you end up learning once you have a concept that works, everything else starts getting filled in. You know, like you learn these things because, let's say if you're at a business and then you go to another business, they're going to tell you how to do marketing for their business, and it's going to be maybe completely different from the one you came from before. So what's the thing that you can't teach? Like, I have this product. I have this culture I want to create. This is what I want to do. And then entrepreneurs, from what I'm learning, they're going in, it's like, look, we break rules. We do our own version of it. We play within the boundaries of certain rules that are inextricably connected to what entrepreneurship is, but really, we got to do our own thing. And that's what leads to people being successful and being able to maintain what they're really in business for.
And that's one of the most humbling things. Just the fact, when I think about our marketing is really just us three sharing who we are with an audience. And it's been incredible for us to see that people have accepted that or find us clever or entertaining. You know, it's awesome.
This podcast might be marketing. So last two I got for you. This one I think is funny. How many bottles do you drink a day of your kombucha?
I would say I drink between 2 to 3.
Okay.
2 to 3.
That's fair. That's a fair number. And lastly,
I try to keep it in control, but there are definitely days when, you know, I'll have a bunch of meetings, and especially if they're sales meetings, I can't have them drinking our product and act like I don't drink it. I mean, I love our product. But there's some of those days where I'm like, you know, I'm on kombucha like between 7 and 8 right now. I should probably at least slow down.
I mean, you know, as Biggie said, you can't get high if you own supply. And, you know, if you're just in the weeds, as you take a sip, by the way.
It was great timing.
It was great timing. This is the last one I have for you. How do you start your day? What is that first thing you do when you're out of bed? How do you start your day?
So the first thing I do is I'll wake up, I'll brush my teeth, and then I'll look at my Google Calendar just to get in like the mental space of the day. Like, what do I have going on today? Where do I have to be? Just kind of getting mentally prepared for it. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to be the type of person that has this beautiful morning routine. You know, like I wake up, I meditate, I work out, and then I go to work. I've always been I wake up, I roll out of bed, I brush my teeth, I shower, I get in my car and come to work.
Yeah.
But I have tried this new routine when at the end of the day, I always make sure to take a few minutes to kind of recap and kind of like appreciate what happened during the day.
Yeah.
Because I actually started doing that because I was listening to a podcast and someone was asking a successful entrepreneur what's their biggest regret. And theirs was that they didn't reflect on the moments as they happened. And it felt like they lost time because of that. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, I was appreciating things as they happen.
That's great. And that is important. You got to celebrate, and you have to acknowledge things as they happened, and because they need to have their due, you know. And I think that's really key. For me, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is probably say a 4-letter word, you know, as to why I'm up, and then I kind of do the same thing. I might work out, but I'm gonna do the same thing you do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. Like, I feel like I've always wanted to be that epic morning person. It just hasn't happened for me yet.
You're still young. So there you have it. I want to thank you for coming onto the podcast. This has been a treat. And 2, I want to invite you to plug away, pitch it. Like, where can they check out you, your brand, pretty much everything happening, Mobtown Fermentations, Wild Bay Kombucha, all of that good stuff.
So on social media, we're just at Wild Bay Kombucha. I think the best thing you can do is, for us at least, is to check us out in stores and give our product a try. See if you enjoy it. See if it makes a difference in your life. You can find our kombucha in Whole Foods, Giant, Harris Teeter, tons of awesome local spots. You know, Eddie's Market, Grawl's Market, Mom's Organic, and it's one of those things where we've learned over time that once people are familiar with our brand, they start to realize that they're seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the Wild Bay Kombucha side. And then Icaro Yerba Mate, we actually ship nationwide with free shipping. So if you want to give us a try, just go to icarot.com. That's ICAROT.com, and give the product a shot. It's a great source of caffeine for an afternoon pick-me-up without those jitters, and you can still sleep at night. It's definitely made a difference for us.
Absolutely. So I want to thank Sid Sharma for coming on to the podcast. This has been a lot of fun. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there is food and bev in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.